is the final Mental Health Monday Live. If you have been following along all month, this is the third one. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the stigma, the silence we inherited, where it came from, and what it's been costing us. Last week, we went into the body. We talked about weathering. We talked about the racial battle fatigue. We did the physiological sigh together. Maybe we didn't. Maybe I talked about it. I don't remember. But I talked about how sighing helps you reset your nervous system. We sat with the reality that Black bodies are aging faster, not only or not because of genetics, not because of lifestyle, but because of chronic stress of being Black in America. And if you are still sitting with anything from that conversation, put it in the comments. Let me know. If you're watching the replay and you watched you were part of the live last week, just let me know what resonated with you from that conversation. But tonight we are going somewhere different. Tonight is not about science. Tonight is about the cost. What actually happens in our bodies, in our relationships, in our families, and in our community when we carry everything that we talked about last week and we never address it. What does that weight do when it has nowhere to go? I've been a therapist for almost 4 years. 2020, yeah, almost 4 years now, and I have sat with hundreds of Black people in a therapy room. And I want to tell you one of the things that I see, not the statistics, not research, but what I actually see. So, excuse me. If you are ready to get into tonight's conversation, type ready so we can get into the conversation. It's going to be a really good conversation. But here's what I want, or here's what I need you to understand. That the weight doesn't disappear because we don't talk about it. It just finds somewhere else to go. It just finds somewhere else to live. Whether that's in your body, whether that's in your relationship, whether that's in your children, in the way you move around the world. Last week, we named where the stress lives in our body. Our shoulders, our chest, maybe in your jaws, in your stomach. Tonight, we're talking about what happens when that stress never gets addressed. And, excuse me, I felt that coming on. The wear and tear on our bodies when we have chronic or repeated stress, it's called the allostatic load. You have a physical load, a mental load, and a chemical load. Your body was not designed for prolonged stress. Our bodies are naturally designed to heal themselves. So when you have prolonged stress, it gets in the way of your body healing itself. That high blood pressure that you think that runs in your family, yeah, there's a genetic component. But chronic, unaddressed stress is also a significant driver. Your cardiovascular system has been working overtime. The autoimmune issues, the hormonal disruptions, the chronic pain that has no clear medical explanation. Sorry, I needed some water. Over here choking. I think my sinuses are draining. The digestive problems. I am not saying that these are like this is all in your head. What I am saying is that your body has been keeping the score. And at some point, it sends you a bill. So you cannot separate your mental health from your physical health. They are the same system. Has your doctor ever connected your physical health to your stress level? When you go in for chronic headaches, have they said, what is your stress like? Let's talk about the stress, the physical, the mental stress on your body, on your nervous system. How often do they connect those things? And I'm not trying to shade doctors, because some doctors are great and do that. But there's also doctors who just prescribe medication and treat symptoms and not try to figure out what's the root of the problem. Here's where I want to slow down a bit, because this is where I think we miss it the most. We have gotten very, very, very good at making our symptoms like there are personality traits. We have gotten so accustomed to the responses that our bodies give that we tell ourselves, oh, I know how to manage my stress well. I manage my stress well. Depression that looks like anger. Think about it. Think about the person in your life, or maybe it's you, who's always irritated, who always has a short fuse, who's always snapping. We just call it they have an attitude. We call it they have a bad temper. We don't often call it what it is. Untreated depression, wearing the only mask that it was allowed to wear. Let's switch over to depression's cousin, anxiety, that looks like productivity. The person who's always achieving, always striving, always doing, always going, moving, always productive, always available. We just call it ambition, or they have drive. We don't ask, what are they running from? What would happen to him or her if she stopped, if he stopped doing all the things? What about trauma that looks like distance? The person who's never quite fully present. They keep walls up. Or they shut down in moments of intimacy or conflict. And we just say it's cold. We may say they're difficult. We don't ask. What happened to them that made closeness or not PMS that made closeness or conflict feel dangerous? We don't ask, because we have taught ourselves to translate our pain into something that's socially acceptable. Having a bad attitude, okay, we can just not invite her next time. We don't have to talk to her. We don't have to call her. We don't have to deal with him next time. But we don't ask. And when we don't know, let me say this different. Let me think about how I want to say this. We have become fluent in that, chalking it up to personality traits, bad attitude, bad temper. Oh, she's just a busybody. We never equate that to maybe she has a little bit of anxiety going on. Which one of those land for you? Is it anger, productivity, or distance? Depression, again, it comes out looking like anger. Short fuse, irritated, always snapping. We say they have an attitude all the time. Anxiety, being productive all the time, always achieving, always striving, always available. We call it ambition. We say she has drive, or he has drive, or he's a hustler. Trauma that looks like distance, always have a wall up or shut down in conflict. Or intimacy. We don't ask what happened that made them feel like closeness and conflict is dangerous. Which one lands for you? Is it anger, being productive, or being distant? And then we begin to numb the pain. This is how we manage the pain without addressing it. Substances, overworking, overeating, overscrolling, staying busy. So you don't have to sit still long enough to feel what's underneath. You're always there for everybody else. So you never have to sit still or turn inward, turn toward yourself. And I'm not here to shame any of that. Because if I'm going to be honest, I've done some of that. I'm here to name it as information. What are you numbing? And what are you numbing it from? Because I'll get personal here for a minute, because I don't think I should sit in front of you and talk about numbing without telling you that I know what it feels like from the inside. Last year, when my mother passed, prime example of how I numbed myself. I worked. I didn't slow down. I had just opened a practice. I was a full-time entrepreneur. My husband had just got downsized from his job. So I did not slow down. I did not sit still. I was building. I showed up for my clients. I was launching things. I stayed so busy. Because I think somewhere underneath all of that, I knew what was waiting for me if I got quiet and sat still for too long. And it wasn't until roughly 6 months later, I called it being dedicated. I called it was purpose. I told myself that building something meaningful, that I was building something meaningful, and that I had to keep going because that's what my mother would want me to do. And maybe part of that was true, but a lot of it was numbing. A lot of it was, if I stop, I have to really feel this. I have to be ready to accept the fact that I can't just pick up the phone and call my mom. I didn't see it at first. And it was roughly 6 months. Because here's the thing about numbing through work. It looks like strength. It looks like you're being productive. And nobody's going to tell you to slow down when you're being productive. But guess what? My body had to make me stop. I started getting dizzy. To one day, I almost passed out. I was so dizzy. My body was screaming. My immune system was saying, you're carrying a lot. And I still kept going after I made a doctor's appointment. We talked about vertigo. We talked about sinuses. We talked about just about every perimenopause, grief, stress. We didn't really talk about at that doctor's appointment. So that's why it was easy for me to keep going, because I'm thinking, oh, it's vertigo. Oh, it's perimenopause. And then one day, I was so fatigued and tired. I just lay in the bed. I couldn't move. And grief hit me so hard. All of it at once. And I thought, this is just a wave of grief that people talk about. I let myself cry. I let myself do all the things. And I went back to my normal schedule the next day. And one day, I started reading Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. I started reading that book, and it dawned on me that I needed to start moving my body as a form of physical rest, but to also move those emotions through my body. And I say all of this not for sympathy. I say this because as a licensed therapist who teaches this for a living, and I still did it, I ran from my own pain. I chose to be busy over feelings. This is how deep this goes. This is how normal this is. This is how much permission we have given ourselves not to grieve, not to feel, not to need. But I also want you to hear this. Just like my body sent me a bill, because it always does. The only question then becomes, when is your body going to send the bill? And how expensive is that bill going to be? Because here's what I know. When we numb our pain, it always is going to cost more than whatever it's protecting us from. I'm going to say that again. When we numb our pain, it is always going to cost more than whatever it was protecting us from. I see this in relationships. I see this in parent-child relationships. Because let me tell you what this does to our relationships. When you have two people in a relationship who love each other, both are in pain, and neither one of them knows how to say to the other person that I'm in pain. So instead they fight about the smallest things, or they go quiet, or they perform like, okay, everything's fine. It's fine. We'll just wait. It'll resolve itself. Which leaves both of them feeling not seen. That's not a relationship problem. That's two individuals who were never taught how to hold their own pain, trying to build something together. And when two people were both taught that needing is weakness, try to build something or try to build a relationship or a marriage, the silence only gets louder. Because now you have two people performing strength around each other, of being real about what they need. They're not being real about what they need. Because he learned not to show vulnerability. Because vulnerability got punished. Showing emotion meant weakness. Asking for help meant failure. She learned to be strong. Because somebody had to be. Because her feelings were too much. Because she watched the women around her hold everything without complaint. And she decided that's what love's supposed to look like. And now they're in a relationship together. Both depleted. Both striving for something they don't have the language to ask for. Both waiting for the other person to reach first. Because if I say that I'm in pain first, that makes me feel like I'm weak or I'm looking soft. And the distance in a lot of relationships, especially for Black couples, is not about love. It's about two people who were never taught it was safe to be vulnerable. Not even with the person that you chose to do life with. This is even more important. It's what we pass on to our children. Not that the relationships are important, but this is what we pass on to our children. When we talk about legacy and all these things, we think about wealth. But do we think about their mental health? Because it's not just about us. Our children are watching. They are watching how we handle pain. They are watching what we call strength. They are watching whether the adults in their lives are allowed to feel things, or are the are you supposed to hide your emotions, push past them, or pray them away? They are writing their story. Their story's being written right now. And that story is going to run their nervous system for probably the rest of their lives, unless they learn too how to reset their nervous systems. But I want you to think about, what are we teaching them? What it looks like to struggle. What are we teaching them is acceptable to feel? What are we teaching them to do when life gets heavy? And I'm not saying this to put more on your plate or to put more weight on you. I'm saying it because I think the most powerful motivator for healing isn't always ourselves. Sometimes it's the people we love. Sometimes it's looking at your child and thinking, I don't want them to carry what I carried. I don't want them to learn the lessons the way that I learned them. What we don't heal in ourselves, we pass on. And I say this all the time, is that my children made me become a better woman because they were a direct reflection. Being married, my husband made me a better woman, made me a better wife. Because I could take their feedback and be like, throw that in the trash. Or I could become self-aware and say, you know what, maybe I do need to calm down. Maybe I do need to slow down. Maybe I do need to be a little bit more patient. What we do not heal in ourselves, we pass on. And that is not guilt. And I'm not saying this to guilt you. I'm saying it as an invitation. Because who are you healing for besides yourself? Because again, a powerful motivator can be healing for your children so that we're not passing down the same generational things to them. And then let's zoom out for a minute, because this isn't just personal. What does it do for our community? A community of people who have been taught not to feel, who are carrying pain that they can't name. That pain finds its way out. Excuse me. Whether it's through the gender wars that we see on Facebook and social media, black men against black women, asking each other what you bring to the table, who's the prize. We see it in the violence that's happening. We see it in the way that we turn on each other because we don't feel like we have anywhere else safe to turn inward. It's easier for us to turn on each other than to look at ourselves. The noise on social media between us is so annoying. But I want to name that carefully because I do believe in Black love. I do love my Black people. I love our community. I love our culture. But I also believe we have to be real about the wounds between us that we have not addressed honestly. The noise is loud, but that hurt underneath is real. And we need spaces where we can process that hurt without it destroying what we're building. Because mental health is not just a personal issue. It's a community issue. What we heal in ourselves, we give to everyone around us. Because again, what we don't heal, we pass it on. And before I give you the practical piece tonight, I need to say this clearly. None of this is our fault. None of this is your fault. We were handed patterns. We were handed a culture of silence that was once protective, that kept our people alive in seasons where showing vulnerability was genuinely dangerous. So silence made sense once, but now we have something that our ancestors didn't have, which was access. They didn't have access to the language for what was happening in their bodies. They didn't have access to therapy. But what they did have access to was each other, community. So the question is not whether you're going to carry something. The question is whether you're going to keep carrying it alone. So I am going to give you 3 practical things tonight. Because what do we do with this pain? Number 1, we name what it's costing us. So last week we named it, and to name it to tame it. This week we're naming what does that cost. Not just that you're stressed, but specifically what is being affected. Is it your sleep? Is it your relationships? Is it your capacity to be present with your family and your children? Is it your physical health? I want you to get specific about what is this costing me? Because vague pain is easy to postpone. If I don't know what the pain is or where the pain is being targeted, then I can postpone that. But if you name what it's costing you, that's harder to ignore. Number 2, I want you to find one relationship where you can be honest. Not perfect, not healed, just honest. One person, whether that's a partner, a spouse, a friend, a therapist, a community, where you can say, I'm not okay right now. And you don't have to follow that up with, but I'm going to be fine. It's okay to say, I'm not okay right now. And if that person doesn't exist in your life that you could just be honest with, that is information. And it's one of the most important things that you can address is finding that safe person that you can be honest with. And then number 3, stop waiting until you're in a crisis. Many of us only reach for help when we're falling apart. Healing doesn't work well in a crisis. Healing works in the consistent, quiet work that you do before the bottom falls out. Because you don't wait until your car breaks down to say, oh, let me get an oil change. You don't wait until you're hospitalized to say, maybe I should see a doctor. Your mental and emotional health deserves the same preventative care. Now, 3 weeks ago, we started with the stigma. We named where the silence came from. 2 weeks ago, we went into the body. We named what the silence does to our body, our nervous systems, and even our aging. Tonight, we named what it does to our relationships, our children, and our community. And I want to close with this. You deserve more than survival. Not performing like you're okay, but actually being okay. Not functioning through it, pushing past your feelings, but actually feeling like yourself. Actually being present in your own life. This is not a luxury. This is not something you earn when you've done enough. This is what you're supposed to have all along. Being present in your life, in your body. Everything we've talked about this month, the stigma, the body, the cost, May 28th is where we're actually doing something about it together. It's a 2-hour virtual sisterhood circle on Zoom. We're going to breathe. We're going to name what we've been carrying. And I'm going to share some real tools for what restoration actually looks like. And we're going to be in the room with other Black women who don't need to know the backstory because we're all living it. And if you don't have a community, if you don't have a person and you are searching for a community, the Harmony Collective this month is 50% off for the first month. And if you're interested in joining us for the Sisterhood Circle on May 28th, I will drop the link in the chat to register. It is now free. Anyone can join. If you are already in the Harmony Collective, you already know you're in free. But this was built for you to show up, to give you a space to put down whatever you're carrying for 2 hours. You deserve to give that to yourself for 2 hours. I believe there's 168 hours in a week. You deserve 2 hours for yourself. I want to drop the link in the comments. And thank you for tuning in throughout this Mental Health Monday series. I want you to, if you have any questions, if you watch the replay, please let me know that you're watching the replay. Just type replay, and so that I can know that you watched it, and leave your feedback, questions, comments. But take good care of yourselves tonight and beyond, and take care of each other. Thank you again for tuning in. This has been an amazing evening, and I will see you next time.